So I was at the store today, and I was looking around at the computers, and like literally right across from me, a customer and a sales associate started talking, and the customer essentially wanted a computer for business. Let me close this out here. Excuse me. And the sales associate, they got into a discussion of Mac versus PC, iWork versus Office. He was saying that Office for the Mac is cheaper than it is on the PC, and by Office, I'm sorry, I meant to say iWork is cheaper, and if you were doing any editing that you would definitely want to go with the Mac. He was stating the whole Macs are superior hardware-wise to PCs, so they got into that, and then in the end they decided $1,500 MacBook. What they did not discuss, and what really riled my feathers, which I call an error, and that was no mention of open source software such as OpenOffice, Firefox, and so forth. So you get Office with your Windows PC. And this is a full version of Office. I'm not talking about the student and teacher edition, okay? I'm talking about the full version of Office. Now, I'm assuming that your PC is roughly $500. So you put $200 for Office on top of that. Now, this is only an estimate. I know that the student and teacher edition is the cheapest, at least I believe it is, and that's $150. So $700 for the MS Office and the PC. iWork plus MacBook or MacBook Pro. I went with the MacBook Pro pricing of over $2,000, $2,050. And again, these are all guesstimates. Now, OpenOffice for the Windows PC is only $400 because essentially you're only paying for the hardware plus Windows. You can just download Office from the net. And OpenOffice 3 does work with the Windows 7 beta. I will tell you that right now. I'm running it on release candidate 1. It works beautifully. And then finally we have OpenOffice plus Linux, which is free. But you don't have to utilize Linux to utilize open source software. And I think that in this day and age, we should turn to open source software. The internet is practically made of open source software. Practically just about all the internet servers, Google, Yahoo, YouTube, they're all Linux based, I believe. And that's a very good thing because Linux is stable. I haven't actually tried this myself, but I've been hearing time and time again that it is not that it is not uncommon for a Linux system to be powered on for several days, weeks, months, even years without having to do a single reboot. And also, it is very, very stable. The odds of it being attacked are very low because the server is built in such a way that it is very, very difficult, if not impossible, to hack unless you really, really, really know what you're doing. And the bulk of people out there don't. So how does this affect the consumer front? Open source software is definitely cost effective. For the most part, it's pretty much free. The only exception is if you were to go with an enterprise solution, at which point you would end up paying for corporate support. But that's all you pay for, is corporate support. You do not pay for the installation. You do not pay for the software, provided you have an IT specialist who can install it, you know, and transfer your stuff over to Linux. For example, instead of using XP Professional, you could switch over to SUSE Linux on Enterprise Desktop, or SLED, which is essentially the same thing as OpenSUSE, and OpenSUSE runs KDE version 3.5, and KDE has a very similar feel to Windows. Plus, SLED comes with everything. It comes with your OpenOffice, it comes with your email client. I can't remember offhand what OpenSUSE comes with off the bat. It comes with Firefox. It also comes with Conqueror as your web browser. Actually, Conqueror is interesting because it serves multiple duties, kind of like Internet Explorer does. It serves duty as your file browser as well as your web browser. But Linux comes with all this stuff for free. But again, you do not have to use Linux. A lot of the open source software, OpenOffice for instance, is cross-platform. And what that means is that it will run on Windows, Mac, and Linux. One thing to note here is they've actually come up with if you download OpenOffice for Mac, it will start in the X11 terminal. And what that means is, at least in my experience, it'll take longer to boot. However, if you get NeoOffice, which is essentially OpenOffice that has been retooled specifically for the Macintosh, you get pretty much the same thing as OpenOffice, just built for the Mac. So if you have a bunch of Macs in your office, you can just download NeoOffice in bulk. Now, I don't know about Windows and Mac. This might be another compelling reason to switch over to SLED, but I use Ubuntu as a virtual machine, and I'm very seriously considering putting it on hardware. I just don't know how to. I just haven't figured out how I want to go about it yet. But OpenOffice on Linux gives you the opportunity to save your file with a password protection. I kid you not, password protection. It won't even give you a hint for the password. You've got to know the password. And for businesses that need to keep very critical data, I think password protecting your critical files is a must. And you know, you password protect your account, but by password protecting the individual file, that adds another layer of security. And OpenOffice for Linux will allow you to do that out of the box. I know Microsoft Word does not. I know iWork does not in the little time that I've used it. OpenOffice does. It definitely does in Linux. I don't know if it does in Windows or Mac. But another interesting thing is instead of Outlook, instead of paying Microsoft for Outlook, or in the Mac's case Entourage, just use Mozilla Thunderbird. Mozilla Thunderbird is again a cross-platform piece of open source technology, completely free. And you know, free is always good when you're looking at businesses. But you know, there's just tons of great open source alternative cross-platform software that you can use instead of having to dole out hundreds upon thousands of dollars for, you know, proprietary software. And I just think that open source is the way of the future. It's free. Firefox is a heck of a lot more stable than Internet Explorer, that's for sure. You know, it's just fantastic. So I honestly think that open source is the way of the future. I think more people need to know about it. Even if you don't use Linux, again, open source, a lot of it is cross-platform, so you don't necessarily have to use Linux. But, you know, I just think more people should learn about open source, and that in the stores, open source should be talked about. In fact, if I were that sales associate, I would have mentioned OpenOffice and the cost benefits to that particular individual wanting to do business on his computer. But that's just me. Comments and questions are welcome. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.